Open Channel D. Welcome to Cocktails in Waverly's office. I'm Hannah.
I'm Logan.
I'm Catherine.
And today we're going to talk about the C. Paris and Di affair.
This episode.
So, this episode is delightful.
Yeah, Hannah, go over it.
Well, yeah, this episode is delightful, but it is definitely one of the ones where the plot is, like, really there in service of all the delightful things that are happening.
Yeah.
So, in the C. Paris and Di affair, Ilya and Napoleon are trying to prevent diamond smugglers from blackmailing the governments of the world by telling them that they're going to release all of the diamonds onto the world market all at once, thereby devaluing all the diamonds in the world simultaneously and crashing the world economy. Now, this sounds like it's gonna be, like, if you go by that, it sounds like it's gonna be, like, a big, world-spanning, like, oh, you gotta steal a bunch of briefcases and, like, fight people for diamonds kind of plot. But no, the diamond smugglers, mostly what they do in this episode is they open a jazz club, and Napoleon and Ilya kidnap a nice young lady who was the ex-girlfriend of one of the diamond smugglers, and convince her to cozy up to the diamond smuggler so that he will put her in his jazz club, so that they can use her to get close to them and figure out where they're hiding the diamonds, and then they can get the diamonds back from them and prevent global economic collapse. The diamond smugglers are a pair of cousins, Max and Joe, and I think they're supposed to be Dutch?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dutch.
And Joe seems to be Dutch, but Max not so much. Max seems to just be a British man. And and the woman who they use in this episode to get close to Max is Mary, who is she was originally a, like, lounge singer, but she's recently been, like, classically retrained as an opera singer. And she is delightful. And much of the plot involves Ilya and Napoleon pitting the two cousins against each other in ways to make them mistrust one another, so that then the diamonds will, their location will come to light. But again, the plot of this episode is really secondary to all of the just, like, wonderful, weird things that happen within it.
We never even see the diamonds. It's so sad. Like, I just want to see some sparkly crystals or something, but even sparkly pieces of plastic. But no, there's nothing. I hate it.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think I even noticed that we didn't see the diamonds. I'm like, yeah, they're in the furniture, so of course we didn't see them. You can't see things that are inside furniture.
Yeah,
they're inside the furniture, but still, I want to see them.
Oh, actually, there was another episode called The King of Diamonds Affair, and I think there were no diamonds.
I guess they just don't have any, like, prop crystals that can look like diamonds.
The MGM studio lot had no diamonds.
Maybe they were, like, very serious about it, and they didn't want to use just glass because it's pretty visible when it's just glass. So they probably wanted to use something better than glass.
I mean, use some, like, cheap quartz or something, but still.
Cubic zirconia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a small child, I thought cubic zirconia was, like, a real thing, like, that it wasn't just cut glass. I thought that there was, like, a particular gemstone called cubic zirconia. That was a sad day when I discovered that just means cut glass.
Yeah, well, when I was a child, I had, like, this glass diamond-shaped thing that was pretty heavy and big, and I thought, wow, I'm so rich.
Yeah, I had, like, a collection of crystals that I got from like souvenir shops. I just buy a bunch of little cheap crystals, and like I thought they were so valuable, but they were probably like 50 cents each.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go back to the episode. We're already off track. Wow. So this episode really is just a bunch of like it has so many weird but funny moments, and we haven't even gotten to talking about like Sophia Gershenko. Yeah, it's Gershenko. Yeah, it's the middle patronate. I tried to make it an actual last name, but it's not.
Well, her name is, I guess, supposed to be Ukrainian because Ko is a common Ukrainian.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then, actually, according to the subtitles, it's an A ending. So like,
yeah, so it really looks like a first name. I mean, not even a first name, but a diminutive of a first name. Grushinka.
I know.
Grushinka.
Yeah.
Is a diminutive of another name, and I even can't think about it because it's like a very old-fashioned name.
Yeah.
But Grushenko makes sense because Grushenko would be an actual last name.
Yeah. So I guess they really succeeded with Ilya's Russian name, but they kind of failed a bit with her name.
I think it was probably taken from a book like where there was a woman with this name as a diminutive, I guess.
Yeah.
She the lady in question, who may or may not be from Ukraine, is Mary's voice coach, and near the end of the episode she actually provides Ilya with quite a number of diminutives. He's Ilyushka and Ilyushenka.
Yeah, Ilyushenka. It's she is a native Russian speaker, and it really shows because she speaks perfect Russian. I think she was Jewish and she immigrated to America because, like, in the USSR there was a lot of anti-Semitism as elsewhere, I guess, but the USA was safer back then, and that's why she immigrated. So basically, her Russian is exemplary. And
I can't say the same thing about Napoleon and Ilya's French accented fighting.
God, Napoleon's French accent in this is so awful. So there's a scene where Napoleon and Ilya are pretending to be a robber and a police officer. And first off, Napoleon introduces himself as Inspector Javert, which, like, literally, you could not have picked a more famous French inspector. All right, good job. But then he comes in, he's like, "Oh, oui, I am the police inspector. This man here is an assassin." And it's like, no one in the history of France has ever spoken like that, ever.
Yeah, he's just trying to say ass and get away with it on TV.
It's really truly bad.
I wanted to say that, Sophia Grushenko being so good at Russian is contrasted by the von Schitten brothers being absolutely rubbish at the Dutch accent, because both actors were actually from America. Like, the guy who played Max was from Canada, and the guy who played Joseph was from New York. But like, they tried, but they actually is more like posh British than any other thing, I guess.
Yeah, if I've noticed that, like, any accent from Western Europe that is like that's kind of a bit more like people don't know what it is, or like even like or Scandinavian, or like actually just kind of from like a less like commonly heard accent from a European country. It's not Eastern Europe. It kind of just defaults to British.
Yeah, kind
Yeah, Max is straight up just British. He's like, "Oh, hello, Mary," but Joe, for some reason, he like waffles between British and kind of German.
I guess
he knew that it wasn't supposed to be British, but he didn't really know what it was supposed to be either.
Yeah, they kind of tried, but not well enough, because, like, I know a Dutch girl, and she said it was nothing like the Dutch accent. Yeah, it's fun. But also, in this episode, there were surprisingly many people speaking French pretty well. Like,
Yeah,
gendarmes and stuff, and even just workers spoke French, and it sounded okay.
yeah. The French in the background of the episode is pretty reasonable, which is very entertaining in contrast to Napoleon being like, "Oui, oui, Madame Baguette." Like,
yeah. And Napoleon. Okay, the reason why I keep talking about their French accents and fighting is that when Napoleon is like pretending to fight Ilya, the assassin, like they're like going like while they're fighting, and I'm just like, what?
Don't you know that French people are like Pokemon? They just like say, the same thing over and over again. It's really weird.
Yeah, it really stuck with me because it was so weird.
It's so funny.
We should probably explain why this is happening. So, in this part of the episode, so it actually starts with, I mentioned that Ilya and Napoleon spent a bunch of time trying to pit Max and Joe against each other. So, the first thing that happens is after Max has been reintroduced to Mary, he is, trying to woo her, and they leave the jazz club that he's just gotten her a new job at. And as they're leaving, Ilya is, like, hanging outside, like, lurking, pretending to be a French mugger. And he has, like, a little beret on and a knife, and he's like, "I'm here for your money and your wallet, especially your wallet." And Max is like, "It just has business cards in it." And Ilya's like, "That's fine." And he steals his wallet full of business cards. And the intention there is just to make Max suspicious, because he asks basically like, "Well, what do you want from me?" And Ilya's like, "Oh, well, I wasn't supposed to tell you, but Joe sent me." So then they later, to plant the same seed of doubt in Joe's mind, Ilya and Napoleon go to Joe's hotel room and pretend as if Ilya is a robber who has been sent to rob Joe. And so now both Joe and Max think that the other is trying to sabotage them.
Yeah.
And while they're fighting, and then they're just fighting, going, oh.
As one does.
That fighting scene was so iconic because it's so homoerotic.
Yeah.
It's like they're basically hugging each other. Almost.
Yeah, there's a lot of manhandling of one another in that scene, and as Napoleon is taking Ilya out, pretending, "Oh, I have finally caught the robber," he looks at Ilya and he says, "Allons, we go sweat you a little bit, eh, pussycat?" And it's like, wow, you just said that in front of Joe. Okay. He did not consent to be in this scene.
To be honest,
I consent. I consent. Is there somebody you forgot to ask?
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that they got away with it on TV, like Paul, because what the hell?
Yep.
And Ilya's a cat again.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, there's like this French cartoon, I think, or more like a franchise about Chat Noir and Ladybug.
Oh yeah.
I haven't actually seen it or interacted with it at all, but like every time I see Chat Noir, I'm like, oh, really?
Oh, yeah, it's called the Miraculous Ladybug in the English version. If anyone doesn't know,
It is in fact
I've never seen it either, but now I'll never unsee it.
for anyone who's like, oh, is this something with like a sexy cat thief? No, it's a children's cartoon.
Yeah.
So don't be disappointed if you look it up and you're like, these are CG children.
Yeah. But they also look, I mean, the cat looks very much like Ilya, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's like teenage Ilya.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, you're so right. Yeah.
The difference is that theoretically, since it's a French children's cartoon, Chat Noir can, actually speak French. Napoleon has no excuse, but Ilya supposedly went to college in France, so his terrible French accent is like, really?
Yeah. Actually, I mean, many Russian people retain their accents for their whole lives, so it's kind of okay. But at the same time, yeah, when Ilya critiques Napoleon's accent, it's like, what? Why?
Yours isn't much better, bud.
Yeah.
So, did anyone notice, the weird, PowerPoint transitions at the beginning of the episode?
What?
There was, they were, it, faded black and then kind of, rotated a bit, and I'm just, it did, that 3 times between different, shots, and I'm just what is this? Did anyone notice that? Because I just was what? This has never happened in Man from U.N.C.L.E. at all, and I'm just
I think I kind of thought of it as a Star Wars transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't pay attention much to these things, but at the same time, you say it's a PowerPoint thing, but back then there was no PowerPoint, so...
I know, I'm just saying that to get across the idea, even though I am not a complete Gen Z fool. I do know, indeed, there was no PowerPoint in the 60s.
Basically what I mean is that PowerPoint tried to use techniques that were seen as cool before PowerPoint existed. Basically.
Yeah, it's the whole idea of early PowerPoint was they were using cinematic techniques so that your presentations would be cool looking. So when you wanted to present the yearly budget, everyone wouldn't fall asleep.
Yeah, but
they were weird. And not the way that it usually works in episodes of Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yeah, they were weird. I didn't like them because it stood out so much because I've never seen them in another Man from U.N.C.L.E. episode. So I guess it's
maybe.
Why did they do that?
But also, once you make enough PowerPoint presentations, they look very bad. I mean, all of them look awful. And I get it because you are studying and you're probably making presentations, so those PowerPoint style transitions probably look very bad to you, right?
I actually, I intentionally don't use transitions because I see them as distracting.
Yes, same. I didn't use them because they all look lame once you use them once or twice.
So you guys are not like I was in elementary school, where everything spun all the time.
Okay, I have to say, I used to be like that in elementary school, but now in university, that's pretty unacceptable.
Now I want to do that like in my own classroom. Like just all of my teaching PowerPoints are gonna be like zoom swoosh. I'm gonna add boing sound effect. See if any of the kids notice. In contrast to the like very bad cuts very early in the episode, there's a series of really wonderful cuts right after they kidnap Mary. Mary is unlike many of the innocents, she's really not given a choice. So, Ilya is on the walkie-talkie with Napoleon, and the two of them are, flirting as usual, and Ilya gives Napoleon the signal to go, and Napoleon, like a prowler, jumps out of the shadows and, pushes Mary into a cab. And they bring her to Uncle headquarters and, immediately start, redoing her hair and, rubbing her face with, moisturizer and, redressing her as she's, complaining about all of this happening. But, each time something new is happening, there's a very quick cut between, Napoleon's previous statement and the next time we see her, and it's really, the comedic timing is perfect.
Yeah. I got to see that Mary wasn't given any choice by anybody. It was like, oh my god, poor lady, because
Uncle literally abducted her.
And then Max did the same thing and stuff. It was bad.
Yeah, it's very interesting because Mary spends most of the episode being abducted, and yet she does not at any point come off helpless or a damsel in distress. She's very self-assured throughout the episode and is very good at kind of dealing with these circumstances as they're happening in a way that is both pretty realistic, but also you're oh yeah, damn girl, you got this.
Yeah. She was good.
Yeah, I like Mary a lot.
But still, she had to make this face so many times. Oh, okay, I guess this might as well be happening. It's her face. Her face for half of the episode.
I also think something that might be interesting to talk about is when Mary is kind of in the situation with Max where it's kind of well, she wants to be free and just be not necessarily a jazz singer, but a singer, and I have a career and stuff. But then the force of Max or society is trying to force her to be just a wife, and I thought that might be an interesting thing that could be intentional.
Oh yeah, true. And in the end, she gets the club. And she basically becomes an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to note that, so there's, we said that Max kidnaps her. So later on in the episode, when Max is he and Joe are kind of on the rocks, and he is trying to figure out a way to, get himself safe and get the diamonds safe. He puts himself and Mary on a train, and on the train, he's oh, we're going to go to this small village where we will be married, and we will live forever in peace in this small village where no one can see us anymore. And the phrase he uses is, we will be immediately, irrevocably married.
No, I don't. That's.
Imagine that.
So anyway, yeah, 100% the idea that this feels sort of purposeful in terms of her dreams versus societal expectations for women.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I definitely think that probably was deliberate. So that was actually kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even gotten to like the sandwich scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually haven't really talked much about all of the incredibly weird things that both Napoleon and Elia do in this episode.
Well, we already talked about the assassin.
Yeah, but there's a lot more.
So Napoleon, okay, while Elia's like listening to like a bad guy conversation. I can't remember exactly what. Like, do you remember what it was?
He's listening to he's the thing that's entertaining is there's a third guy other than Joe or Max, Choreo, who is like he actually works for Thrush. And so Choreo has bugged the briefcase that Joe and Max are using to transport money.
No, actually...
no, I'm sorry, you're right. So Uncle has bugged the briefcase, but Choreo's been carrying it around. And Choreo goes to meet with his, like, Thrush handler. And that's what Elia is listening in on. So Choreo says to the Thrush handler something along the lines of...
Wait a second. Basically, like, Choreo finds the bag, and he reports back to his Thrush superior, saying, like, I didn't know that we were listening on time. And his superior says, no, we weren't. It's probably Uncle. And the superior gives him like a tuning fork that can destroy bugs, but it also sounds like ultrasonic waves that can basically kill the person who is listening on them.
Yeah, this is the first instance of an evil tuning fork in Man from U.N.C.L.E, but it will not be the last instance of an evil tuning fork in U.N.C.L.E. When the Thrush... So, again, this is the conversation Elia's listening in on, is the conversation where Choreo and the Thrush guy are talking about the fact that they know they're being bugged. And just before Choreo applies the evil bug and also listener destroying tuning fork, which makes absolutely no sense physically, Elia takes his headphones off. And Elia takes his headphones off because Napoleon has just come into their hotel room with a sandwich. And he comes in and he says they didn't have prosciutto. And he throws Elia the sandwich that is not prosciutto. We don't know what it is. And Elia takes his headphones off to eat. And in doing so saves his own life, because otherwise the headphones would have exploded because of the evil tuning fork.
Yeah.
And here is like here's the I think the reason why that saved his life. Like, he took his headphones off. Like actually, I distinctly remember him taking his headphones off just to bite the sandwich, because it was like a sub sandwich. It was like a sub sandwich, so like it's long. It's like a long and thin sandwich. And this is the weird part. Like, he took off his headphones because the way he eats the sandwich is that he took a bite directly in the middle of, like, the long side, and then, like, the headphone, like, it would, like, get in the way of the headphones, so they kept them on, so he took it off. So, like, literally, like, Ilia's weird way of eating a sub sandwich is what saved his life.
Yeah.
This is another episode that my husband watched with me, and when we got to that part of the scene, he literally just screamed. He was like, why is he eating the sandwich from the middle? And I was like, I don't know. He's a weirdo. I'm sorry.
And of course it's telling that he's so grumpy and weird when Napoleon is around, because they're very comfortable with each other at that point, basically.
Yeah. The scene is very domestic, especially, not only they didn't have prosciutto, line is very like, hey, I know your sandwich order, and I also know what you'd like as a replacement, but then as Elia is biting into the sandwich, he just kind of rolls his eyes and is like, why do you put ketchup and mustard on everything? And I cannot imagine what kind of sandwich they got at probably some little French deli where Napoleon was like, s'il vous plaît, avez-vous le moutarde? Avez-vous le... What the hell is ketchup in French? Is it just ketchup?
Ketchup.
Ketchup. I think it literally is just like ketchup.
And some like old French deli guy is like, merde. Je déteste les Américains et le ketchup. And he puts it on anyway from some bottle that's been sitting behind the counter for like 30 years because only Americans order ketchup.
Yeah, true. Did you know that some people call ketchup ketchup?
Yeah, they do. I that's not a thing in my dialect of English, but I do know it's a thing.
Like, when I first heard about it, it was so weird because, like, what is ketchup?
It's actually usually pronounced ketchup, even if it's spelled catsup, which is really weird. Like, those letters, C-A-T-S-U-P, does not say ketchup.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
think I saw it in a show, something like that. Yeah. So, it's like a running gag almost in the Man from U.N.C.L.E. because in another episode there was also a moment where Napoleon was complaining about Master being inferior. Like, he was eating some kind of a sandwich that actually Ilya bought him that time in season 3, and he was like, very inferior master.
Napoleon is very American.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's Canadian. No, he's not.
If he were Canadian, then it would definitely be catsup. You can get catsup chips in Canada.
Oh my god, I once tried ketchup Pringles and it was so awful.
Yeah, I don't trust anything ketchup flavored. I would rather just have ketchup be ketchup and not have a ketchup flavored chip. That sounds very disturbing.
Yeah. Did you know that ketchup used to be made out of mushrooms before it was made out of tomatoes, and that in other countries ketchup is made out of other things like bananas?
Wow.
Okay, actually, both of those sound really good. I would love mushroom ketchup, and I would love banana ketchup.
Sound really good. Mushrooms are amazing.
Mushroom ketchup was a British thing before tomatoes were introduced to Britain, and banana ketchup, I think, is from the Philippines.
Wow, nice.
Ooh.
Let's learn about condiments with Hannah. So yeah, that's one of the weird things that Napoleon and Ilya do in this episode is their cute sandwich escapades. And then the other is their like weird BDSM scene that they're doing on a balcony that Joe didn't consent to. For the record, if anybody is listening to this and they're French, we don't believe you sound like that, but Man from U.N.C.L.E. does believe you sound like that.
Yeah. I think it's the long-standing influence of Pepe Le Pew.
I have no idea.
Which I know is not an accurate depiction of French culture. Not a reliable source. Citation needed.
Really? A cartoon skunk doesn't tell you everything you need to know about a culture?
It is skunk. Okay, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a Looney Tunes character who goes like, wee wee wee, ho ho ho.
Yeah, it's a Looney Tunes character, Skunk, whose whole shtick is basically that he wants to have sex with a cat, And the cat is like, oh my god, what is happening to me?
Oh
Yeah. Okay, my mom had this weird. Okay, so for years, my mom wore these pajama pants that had Pepe Le Pew on them, and then one day she went up to me and she was like, "I watched a Pepe Le Pew cartoon for the first time since childhood. He was a creep."
Oh my god!
Pepe Le Pew is cancelled.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh my god.
My whole experience with this French stereotypes is only the Flight of the Conchords song. They had a very funny song with French words. Like they were pretending to speak French, but they didn't actually speak French.
We talk about this one of the other times, the idea of, like a yaourte, like the when you speak you don't speak a language, but you can manage to imitate it.
I just love this song very much. I guess that's why I reference it all.
Oh my god. Okay, I remember this one scene with like the thrush guy and this girl on a couch.
She's feeding her grapes.
Yeah, like she's feeding him grapes, and they're like making these super ugly smacking sounds with their lips, and it made me want to scream inside. Because they were just like
the anti-ASMR scene with the thrush guy and his sexy lady. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's that's the other thing Ilya is listening in on, and Ilya doesn't know that he's like sexily feeding a lady grapes. So from Ilya's perspective, it's like
I thought the lady was sexily feeding him.
I thought he was feeding her the grapes, but I don't know. She's sitting on a couch and he was not, so that's why I think I assumed.
But I remember her like lifting up her fingers and then sticking a grape in his mouth.
It was her.
Maybe okay. It doesn't really matter, but was it mutual grape feeding? Was it grape feeding from one party to the other? Was it?
I think he was just speaking on the phone basically, and she was feeding.
Oh my god. Mutual grape feeding sounds like a really weird Archive of Our Own tag.
Plot, fluff, angst, mutual grape feeding.
Yeah. Also, speaking about cultural stuff, basically I googled if to see Paris and I was a phrase known in America and like where it comes from, and all the sources I've seen only say that it's a Russian phrase, and I can confirm because people say "увидеть Paris" you mean it in Russia, but it's interesting that they knew this phrase existed, basically.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because actually after we finished the episode, my husband Googled the same thing, and he was like, is it really a Russian phrase? Or is it like...
It is.
So I will report back.
So basically, what I wanted to hear from you is you don't have experience with this phrase, right?
No.
Yeah, I have never heard it before.
Oh, wow.
Until this episode.
I mean, for me it was like, yeah, it's a very common phrase.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah. So, it's pretty good that they knew that phrase existed, and they also had a Russian actress. And I even checked who the writer was, and it was Peter Allen Fields, basically my favorite writer.
The Peter Allen Fields episodes, as previously mentioned, are the ones where Napoleon and Ilya seem to be super married.
Yeah.
Yeah. God. Thinking of this one weird Napoleon scene. Should I explain it?
Which one? There's so
Yeah,
we
many.
haven't talked about it yet. When he's talking to Mary and he just goes, "I'll buy you a couple of schnorts." And okay, I know like a snort can be like can mean like alcohol, but I just was like, why did he say schnorts? And then I just was like, is that some like alternate version really that where I didn't know? So I looked up on Wiktionary, it's not a thing. I looked it up schnorts in the International Phonetic Alphabet to see if any dictionaries identified it. Sorry, linguistics major speaking. And no, it is not a thing. Napoleon was just being weird.
Do you know what it is? It's like a Groucho Marx thing.
It is?
So it's not the specific.
I don't know.
Not the specific word, but like turning an S into a sh is like like sweetheart, like instead of sweetheart. So like he's doing that kind of like 1930s thing.
I don't know Groucho Marx content, so.
Yeah, but he is definitely being weird there.
Yeah.
Nothing sexier than channeling a dead comedian. Actually, I guess he wouldn't have been dead in the 60s. He was still alive in the 60s. He was still alive for a long time after that.
Wow. Awesome.
Groucho Marx was very old when he died, but
I don't know his content and I don't know his lore.
Okay, I had the all-time greatest t-shirt in high school that had a picture of the Marx Brothers and Karl Marx on it, and it just said, "Sure, I'm a Marxist."
I mean, for us, like referencing a comedy from the 80s, right? It's not that
it's not that weird.
Different. Like, people still quote Airplane and stuff, so...
Yeah, that's true.
And not even speaking about the 70s with, like, Munch Button. I still quote.
Yeah. I watched The Terminator for the first time recently, and I was like, that's where those phrases came from.
Wow, really? You haven't seen it? You hadn't seen it before? Yeah.
I hadn't seen it before, and then I watched it, and I was like, that's where, like, I'll be back comes from.
Wow. I mean, I don't remember how old I was when I watched Terminator consciously, but I feel like I always needed Hasta La Vista, baby. And I was like, him from Terminator.
It is fascinating going back and like watching older media and figuring out particularly where certain pop culture things come from, and then figuring out the extent to which certain pop culture things have absolutely been like mangled. Like, every single quote from Casablanca is wrong. Like, all the things that you think of as, like, quotes from that are not the way they're said in the movie. And, like, it really, really is very interesting to me, like, what things in pop culture get passed down correctly versus what things in pop culture don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like beam me up, Scotty, never even occurs in TOS.
No one ever says that.
Yeah, it's interesting because basically people transform culture all the time, and like when I was a teenager, I watched a lot of cartoon TV shows, right? And they all parody the same scenes from the same movies. And I thought it was very weird, I guess, for people who had never seen The Godfather to see every single parody of Godfather before watching The Godfather.
It's amazing how many 90s children's cartoons just were filled with references to things that were, like, so wildly inappropriate for children.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Like, I remember when, hey, Arnold parodied the horse head scene from Godfather.
Yup. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there was a Reanimator reference in Pinky and the Brain.
No.
That's not surprising to me.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
There were recurring gags about Jerry Lewis on the Animaniacs, and it's like, what, 8-year-old in 1992 was like, yeah, funny Jerry Lewis joke.
Yeah, that's not even content of that era. That's like ancient. That was already ancient content by the 90s.
So weird.
Well, I mean, it was from the 60s, so 30 years, not that much.
Yeah, I mean,
well, I was thinking, because when I think of Jerry Lewis content, I think of the Martin and Lewis content from the 50s, but I know he did stuff after that too.
I mean, he was in the Nutty Professor in the 60s, and he was super big in the 60s. But I haven't seen it, but I'm aware that he was very big in the 60s as well. Basically. So yeah. And it's weird growing up with stuff that you don't even know that is referenced.
Yeah, it's amazing how many things, I've, even just this past year, watching a lot of older movies during the pandemic, because you can't leave your house, and being like, oh!
Yeah. It's even weirder when you watch or read stuff that's even older, and they reference basically what was a meme back then.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay.
Vintage.
Oh yeah.
Vintage memes.
Oh yeah, when I was watching, I feel so smart when I understand a reference to pop culture from something that's old. I'm literally I feel so if I when I was watching Road to Bali as in the Crosby and Hope movie, and there's this one scene where Dorothy Lamore's character imagines has Martin and Lewis as a couple in her imagination with Lewis dressed up as a girl. I'm like, see, I know that. I'm it wouldn't have the same impact if I just were just some dudes.
Wow. Fascinating. I mean, I never thought that it was real people sheep before. I mean, I guess people saw it even then because people don't point out things like that without seeing them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I have a very important question. What happened to Ilya's pants in this episode?
Oh,
what?
It was weird.
Oh yeah, did he say something about his trousers?
Indeed.
I mean,
what did he say?
It reminded me of the scene in the Treble Affair where they basically both stole people's trousers at some point.
Yup. So what he says is let me back up slightly. So Ilya goes to check on the furniture when they've discovered that the diamonds might be in the furniture, and a thrush person comes to confront Joe, and he and Napoleon end up fighting. And in the meantime, this was right after Napoleon was on the phone with Ilya, and Ilya gets knocked out during the phone call. And then a while later, Napoleon calls him back, and Napoleon very unkindly says, "Do you have that left out feeling?" It's like Ilya's been out cold. This is not he slept through something. The man is concussed. And Ilya's response is, firstly, "Don't be cute," which is so cute. And then when I did get to my feet, it took me half an hour to find my trousers. No, we don't see them taking his pants off. Why did they take his pants off?
Oh.
I mean, yeah, they basically left as soon as they knocked him out, right? They had more urgent business. Maybe
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that.
Like, who took his pants off?
No, I mean, okay, bringing it back to the previous conversation, maybe it was like a meme in the 60s.
Maybe.
Yeah, because
Maybe there was like a people losing their pants joke that we are missing because we don't have that cultural context.
Yeah. And that's why
It's the pantsing gremlins.
Yeah, and that's why they did it in the Trip of Affair as well, I guess, maybe. Because it was like a running gag.
Now I'm wondering whether it was like a 1960s running gag or if like the people who worked on Man from U.N.C.L.E. just thought the idea of not having pants was like the funniest thing in the entire world.
Yeah! It's weird. It's like the different writers also. I mean, it's not the same writer who wrote these episodes, but they are both very prominent Men from U.N.C.L.E. episodes. Authors. So basically, they could have like their own jokes inside the
No
writing
pants.
stuff.
The shared bond between Alan Caillou and Peter Allen Fields is no pants.
Oh my god. Oh, this is... for some reason my brain went, is there RPF of Man from U.N.C.L.E. writers?
No, there is.
You summoned it into existence.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I mean, actually, I shipped Norman Felton and Ian Fleming before it was cool.
I remember. You've talked about their like long walks in the English fog.
Wait, they had long walks in the English fog?
Actually, yeah.
Oh.
They were talking about the concept of the show, okay? But it was also described in such a way that it sounds very romantic.
Yeah. For some reason, like, I imagine it being like an anime like scene with like anime Norman Felton and Ian Fleming with the reduced frames, and they're all anime, and the fog is swirling around them and stuff, and it's all beautiful and anime. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Norman.
So
Senpai.
I guess the fact that we all are okay with multi-shipping made this podcast so much worse because we constantly want to ship everybody with everything.
Yeah. You know, like, literally, I love, like, just my daily life thinking about, like, absurd ships. Like, okay, so, Kat, here in the United States, there's a brand of paper towels called Brawny that has, like, a lumberjack on it, but you only see, like, his torso. His head is, like, cut off of the packaging. You don't see it. And I just...
when you said cut off, I saw something different.
No, I don't mean like his head is like lopped off. I mean like you don't see his head on the packaging. It's just his torso and like a plaid shirt and stuff, and he's all muscular and hairy and buff. And when I was at work, and stocking the shelves with that, I just was thinking, someone's written fan fiction of that brawny torso.
Brawny Van X Mr. Clean forever.
I mean, Mr. Clean is such a sex symbol in America. It's weird.
I don't think he actually is a sex symbol. I just think the company behind them wants us to think he's a sex symbol.
Yeah, yes, because like I've seen that Super Bowl commercial where he was super like sexy and dancing with a lady. Like what? And I just gonna say that in Russia, he's called Mr. Proper, and he is very different in our commercials, basically. Yeah, also,
the difference Mr. Clean continuities.
yeah, it's also
Mr. Clean
interesting that they
multiverse
have,
you.
yeah, they have different names, but it's like the same mascot, right? So basically, you have Mr. Clean and we have Mr. Proper, and Mr. Proper is very proper.
He's not going to be all sexy.
No.
He's not going to sexily strut in the living room.
No.
Oh my god.
As it turns out, this is another cursed episode.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, in the actual episode, they used the word pussycat like in a very weird way, I would say so. They close for it.
They used it in a very Tom Jones kind of way. What's new, pussycat? Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah. Well, I think that the song came after the episode, actually.
Yeah, but that was like actually in the common parlance during that time period. So I mean, he totally was using it in a romantic way. Like that's.
I mean, yeah, it was romantic. That's what I meant. But I'm like, and he also said, "Let's go, sweat you a bit."
Yeah.
Like what?
Why do I like want like an AU where Elias is actually an assassin, a French assassin, and Napoleon is a French police investigator, but they have really bad French accents. And they're just as weird, but they're actually French. And then
oh my god,
and then they get together, sweat it out.
I feel like it also.
I want to write a note.
It's interesting because there's a character later on who's like an old French police officer, and he is called in because the call comes to try to get Mary away from the I'm trying to remember whether someone calls the police in order to get Mary away from Napoleon, or whether someone calls the police in order to get Mary away from Max.
I can tell you the story. Basically, it was Madame Drusenko, because she was like, Napoleon is trying to steal Mary, and she called the police on him first in Paris. Remember?
Yes.
Yes.
And he took her hostage, actually.
Yeah, so that's how the police officer gets involved to begin with, is that he is actually looking for Napoleon, but at this point, Mary's been kidnapped by Max, not Napoleon. But so, Mary tries to explain this to the police officer, and the police officer, like, doesn't buy it. He assumes that Napoleon is, in fact, a kidnapper, and she's like, no, it's fine, like, I know this guy, I like him. And the cop's response is like, oh, yes, I've heard this story, a bad man looks you in your eyes and you just fall deep in love. And Mary is, like, totally not on board with this fanfiction that this cop is writing.
Yeah. and she also says, I see, you read a lot.
Yeah, but it is very interesting in terms of, like, the idea of, playing along with someone who is a bad guy, and or the idea of play acting that kind of, like, belligerent sexual tension, like, that is a weirdly recurring theme in this episode.
Yeah. And by the way, it made me think about one thing, is that basically, you all remember the last scene of the episode in which Napoleon throws Celia under the bus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's describe it, and then I will tell what I think about this scene, okay?
Alright. So, I have to go back briefly. So, we mentioned that the diamonds were in the furniture. So, Ilya is the one who is sent to go check the apartment early on in the episode to see if he can find the diamonds. And he says something to Napoleon about the fact that he, sat down on the couch and he looked all around and blah, 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 and he couldn't find the diamonds. And anyway, later when they find out that the diamonds were in the furniture, Napoleon is like, you didn't think to check inside the furniture? And Ilya's like, it just seemed too obvious. So at the end of the episode, Mary now owns the jazz club, and Napoleon is, as usual, flirting with her, because that's what he does. And he goes to dance with her, and Ilya implies that he and Napoleon are, going to go somewhere together later, and Napoleon's like, oh no, sorry, you have to go back.
He said it's we should report to Mr. Waverly together or something like that.
Yeah, and Napoleon is like, oh no, just you need to report to Mr. Waverly, and Ilya's like, wait, what, why? And Napoleon's like, well, you need to explain why you didn't check the furniture, and Ilya's response is kind of like, why would he even know that I didn't check the furniture? And Napoleon is like, 'cause I told him. And Ilya's response to this is, you blockhead, because he is apparently Peanuts' character. And it's just a delightful sort of bit of asshattery. In which Napoleon, for absolutely no reason other than to be a jerk, throws Ilya under the bus and is like, now you have to go deal with Mr. Waverly while I dance with this lady.
Yeah, and also he basically signals to Madame Grushenko that Ilya is a very, nice guy. And she starts flirting with him.
Yeah, and then calling him a bunch of diminutives.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh. I actually didn't. I don't think Waverly was in this episode.
He was not.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't see him. Was the OG Carol having health? Was one of his health concern time?
I think it's probably just one of those episodes in which he doesn't appear. She didn't appear in the Yellow Scarf affair. I'm 100% sure of it. He didn't appear in the Six of Scepter affair neither. Basically, some scripts don't involve him, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Because, earlier in the show, you remember there was, a scene in which Napoleon comes to the office, and there's no Waverly, only Ilya. That's when Carol was having health problems, because, he couldn't appear in the scenes in which he had to appear,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does make some sense that Waverly just wouldn't show up in some of the episodes where they're abroad.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Waverly can't. I guess Waverly probably would just travel abroad just to deliver one harsh karate chop and then go back to New York.
Oh wait! You wait for it. Wait for it. You will see exactly that in the gazebo in the maze. Basically, almost. He's absent the entire episode, and in the last scene, he arrives on a bicycle.
It's very strange.
He's late to everything, and he just scolds Napoleon, and that's it. Yeah.
Waverly is that guy who, shows up to the last class of the semester and yet somehow ends up taking all of the credit for the group project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, God.
So what I wanted to say is that basically, I think that maybe that scene was necessary because this episode had a lot of very tender moments between Napoleon and Lydia, let's say, and maybe they had to hide it a bit, and that's why they made Napoleon such a jerk in the end. What do you think about it?
So that is my theory for a large number of episodes of Starsky and Hutch.
Yes, same.
And so I would not be surprised if that were something similar that were done in this.
I mean, you can
makes
see
sense.
you can see it very clearly, especially in season 2, because in season 2 there's even more subtext sometimes, and the ending is almost always like the only heterosexual thing that happens in the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a final no homo that
Yeah,
tries to cancel
yes.
out all the gay that happened.
Yeah, that is a similar thing in most episodes of Starsky and Hutch, where it's like in the episodes where they are most affectionate with each other and like touch each other the most, those are also often the ones where it's like they've randomly introduced a long-term girlfriend who you will never see again. And often, like, the next episode is one that involves lots of strippers. And it's like, wow, you really had to go real hard on the no homo after all the gay. So that seems like that may actually have been a legitimate strategy in TV during that time period. Like, the idea that it's like, we can do this, but we can only do it if we disavow it at the end.
Yeah, and I know that Logan is watching a bunch of movies from the 50s, right? And I think it happens.
Oh yes, I am.
As well.
I definitely think that probably was an influence of the Hays Code, and because I actually I'll going back to Roads of Bali, which I watched. Actually, technically, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby's characters get married, but the volcano on the island, because they get married, the volcano erupts because the volcano is like, no marriage with 2 grooms and no bride. So then the volcano erupts and destroys the village. So I guess their way of canceling out the fact that a literal gay wedding happened is that they have a volcano destroy the village.
My God,
volcanoes are homophobic.
Yeah.
I had a legitimate, hardcore phobia of lava as a child. I dreamt about dying in lava, and, I made my mom skip the lava parts on Aladdin, and my mom was like, what is wrong with you? You're not afraid of anything else. And I was like, yes, but lava is very scary, and what if we fall in it and die? And the real answer is actually that all along I just knew that it was homophobic.
Yeah. it's interesting, and what is funny to me about lava? I mean, the first thing I think about when I hear the word lava is the floor is lava, and it's weird because everybody who had siblings, I guess, played this game as a child, but nobody knows where it came from.
Yeah, because I played it as a child, and I didn't even think of it as the floor is lava. I just kind of thought that, let me jump around on the couches and tables and, try not to touch the ground.
Yeah, and, everybody came up with this game spontaneously, I guess.
I'm an only child, and I still did things like that. And so,
yeah.
I didn't even have, an older sibling.
I was practically an only child because the only sibling I had was a half-sister who was 15 years older than me and was adopted by a different family. So, I pretty much grew up as an only child, and I still played it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember we played it totally, with my brother and my cousins, and, I don't think that anybody knew about this game prior to playing. It just happened.
child culture is one of those things that I'm absolutely fascinated by. Like, the fact that there are things that do seem to appear, like, all over the world and, like, from generation to generation. And it does not seem clear how this information is transmitted from person to person.
Yeah. Or like for example, like the cool S like drawing that children do all over the world.
Yeah.
Or a fact that throughout like pretty much the entire Anglosphere and even in some non-English speaking countries, there's a version of the Jingle Bells Batman Smells song that predates when it featured on The Simpsons. So it had that spread even before then. So it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm. It's very strange, and it's really weird. Like, as a middle school teacher, like, watching particularly the 6th graders do stuff that I'm like, that's so weird. I did that when I was a middle schooler. And, like, if I ask them about it, they're like, yeah, that's just, like, a thing we do. And I'm like, but why? Where did you learn
it's so
it?
funny. So, it's like osmosis.
Children are psychic. That's the takeaway.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess. Well, maybe it's just because they absorb information very fast and, like, basically they hear one thing once and they remember it forever. I don't know.
Oh yeah, like among my generation, like apparently the Killing Barney song was spread all over the place.
Which is so weird to me because, like, that definitely was also a thing when I was a kid. And, like, when you were a small child, like, was Barney even on TV still?
It was on reruns.
It's very strange.
Yeah, but... Yeah, I wonder if the Killing Barney song is still a thing. Like, is Barney still on the air? Like, is it still on reruns? Like, actually, they're streaming now. It's different. Oh.
I don't think it is. I think there's no more Barney. No more purple dinosaur, as they say in the song.
No more purple dinosaur. Anyways, do we have anything else to say about the episode? Now we've talked about Barney.
Okay, let me think. I think we should talk about the helicopter thing.
Oh yeah!
Oh, they touch each other in the helicopter.
Like a lot.
Ooga ooga! Ooga! I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so the helicopter scene near the end of the episode when the diamonds have been smuggled out of the furniture and into a moving truck. The Napoleon is trying to, like, he's asked Ilya to be ready with an Uncle helicopter. And Napoleon lights a cart full of hay on fire, I guess, to get Ilya's attention? ?
Yeah.
And then, like, he stands.
Is that literally why? I was so confused by that scene. I was like, well, where is this? Are there like diamonds in the hay or something? Now just reveal the diamonds. That's not helpful. I literally was so confused by that, and I guess it was just to get Ilya's attention.
Napoleon commits arson to get his boyfriend's attention. And so he then, like, stands behind the cart of hay, like, waving his arms, like, hi, hey, look, I'm over here. And Ilya swoops down and picks Napoleon up on the helicopter, and then the two of them, like, get real close in the helicopter, and they just have, like, the cutest dialogue. It is so, so cute. And then, they chase the truck full of stolen furniture full of diamonds, and they catch it by landing the helicopter on top of it.
Yeah, so... I also wanted to mention the fact that diamonds hidden in furniture is also a very well-known thing in Russia. I mean, obviously people did things like that when they were hiding from the revolution because they hoped to come back. But, like, there was a book a very famous book that I also very much love called The 12 Chairs. I think I talk about it all the time.
It's still on my list of movies to watch.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it because it's very fun. Basically, like there were diamonds hidden in one chair out of 12, and there was like a con artist, and the old noblemen who were trying to find the diamonds and chasing them all around Russia, basically. And like when I saw that the diamonds were hidden in the furniture, it reminded me of it because I think in the 60s it was translated into English probably because actually Mel Brooks filmed an adaptation of it. I haven't seen it myself.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I really like Mel Brooks, so I probably would want to see that.
I believe the Mel Brooks version is not considered very good. I don't think it's considered one of his better movies.
Yeah,
that's sad.
Nobody knows about it because, like, he made Produce It, and then he made The Young Frankenstein, and then he made The Blazing Saddles. Basically, nobody remembers it. In between of them, he made the 12 Chairs. Yeah.
Is it like to his career as like The Nose was to Shostakovich's career?
Well,
was that too nerdy?
Yeah, it was very nerdy. Like, I know a lot of Shostakovich's music, but not this story.
Oh, it was his failed opera that sucked.
I mean, it's very hard to adapt The Nose. I mean, it's a very famous story.
Yeah, but I guess apparently his adaptation was not the best.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. If you were tasked with writing an opera about a government worker who lost his nose and his nose then later started running around the city and acting like Napoleon, it's like weird. I mean, Napoleon...
I've seen pictures of productions of it, and like literally the people are like walking around inside giant nose costumes, with just feet standing.
Yeah, it's because it's like the nose ran away, and the nose became. I mean, it became like a nobleman, I guess. It's a very weird story, but it's also very famous.
This is the kind of thing that I think works real well on paper, but like the moment you're like, okay, and someone's gonna have to play this piece of a body and sing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super weird. Like, I don't even think it would work with a ballet because, like, what are you gonna dance?
I want to see someone have to put on toe shoes and pretend to be a nose.
I mean, actually, I recently was recommended a video on YouTube because I think the Tusset Violin made a mention of this thing. Basically, Tusset Violin is a very famous channel on YouTube that talks about classical music, and they mentioned this in which
Tusset Violin.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
They mentioned this in one of the videos. Like there was a scene in which noses were dancing, like tap dance, and you can watch it on YouTube. Absolutely, it's very like a short scene, and it's very funny. Yeah. So basically, yeah. The diamonds in the furniture were also a very Russian thing. So I'm wondering how much did the writers know about Russia, because it's like so much. There's a phrase, there's like an actual Russian character, and also I need to mention that Sofia Grushenko, like she swears at Napoleon so much, and she uses so many different words. for scoundrel in Russian. Basically, you can learn. Yeah, you can learn a lot of swear words from her.
I recognize a few of the Russian words she was saying.
I love when things get away with having people say naughty words in other languages. I feel like that doesn't happen on TV very much anymore because it's like too easy to, look things up or like get them captioned and stuff. But back in the day, you would often have people like saying things that were actually pretty offensive in other languages, and it would be like, "Hey, I know what that means."
Mad.
Yeah, to be fair, nothing that she said was like very rude, but it was many words. Like she said, мерзавец, негодяй, разбойник, something else, like not one or two words, it was like 7 words, meaning scoundrel, basically. Yeah.
I feel like 7 words meaning scoundrel is a great fic title.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah! Write that about fic where, like, oh god, that's actually a terrible idea, never mind. I was gonna say that, like, they're gonna get frisky in the helicopter, then I'm like, wait, they have to fly the helicopter.
Yeah, the helicopter is actually, like, the last place you should ever get frisky.
Maybe, oh god, maybe you could have, like, if you're super rich, you could, like, get hire, like, a pilot to fly a helicopter and then get frisky inside it while they're up at front and join the Mile High Club, but in a helicopter.
I do not like this idea. This is a terrible idea.
Yeah, because helicopters, like, often, like, it might be kind of too small, and then you're like,
very small.
Just ignore us, Jeeves.
But also, you know that somebody probably did it.
I'm sure. Rich people are awful.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's got to be someone in human history who's had sex in a helicopter.
I mean, definitely. It's not a good idea, but someone's definitely done it.
Okay, so in The Sims, you can actually have sex in a hot air balloon, and I wonder if someone has done that in history.
Almost certainly.
But like, it's dangerous, I guess, because it's gonna move.
Oh my
list
god!
of places that it's dangerous to have sex. A swamp. A hot air balloon.
Oh god. Never use The Sims for inspiration as to what strange places you want to have sex, because there's some very poor sex locations that you can still have sex in The Sims. Yeah.
On a furniture truck full of diamonds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And the guy who played the driver of the truck, he appears in like 20 episodes of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. He usually plays trash goons. And it's pretty funny when you start recognizing him, like, it's you again.
You start recognizing the thrush goon.
Yeah.
Maybe he's actually not playing different characters. Maybe it's just like this is one of the most, like active thrushies.
Yeah, and it's a good crack to him because like he gets killed sometimes.
He comes from a very big family with many identical septuplets.
Or maybe it's actually a confirmation of the fact that Uncle uses flipping darts and, like, he gets knocked out and he gets up again.
We're never gonna keep him down. Well, that's a delightful headcanon, and I'm very glad to have it in my brain now.
Yeah, so I kind of recommend memorizing his face because it will be funny seeing him pretty often.
What's his name again? I want to know his name so I can memorize his face.
I don't know. I mean, basically, you find the scene in which he plays the truck driver and go from there, I guess. Because why I remember his face is because I made screen caps of all the episodes, right? And when you make screen caps and you look at them, you basically start seeing that there are some people who have seen before. I guess it's not that way, of course, if you watch the episodes and do nothing with them. But when you make GIFs and you make screen caps, you start noticing people that you didn't notice before. I think it's gonna be easy to look him up because he's probably on the IMDb page.
Yeah, definitely. I just was wondering if you knew so I could get immediate gratification, but...
No, I don't know his name, but I know his face. That's enough. Oh, by the way, the guy who played Max, he will come back in the worst episode. Not in the worst episode as in bad, but in the most emotional texting episode all the way from.
Okay, because I was thinking, he's in the My Friend the Gorilla affair.
No, he is in the Summit 5 of thing. I mean, you've seen it, right?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, I have.
I mean, for me, it's the most difficult episode to watch ever because it just destroys me every time.
It's worst in the sense of heart crushing, not worst in the sense of quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. There's actually quite a few season 3 contenders for that. I know people usually say the My Friend the Gorilla affair, but there's some other options too.
Yeah, but I guess we could say that the Maze affair is maybe even more soul crushing than the Summit Fair affair, or the Summit 5 affair. So basically, season 4 has the angstiest, the darkest episodes of the show, and the Summit 5 is probably one of them. I mean, is one of them.
Who does he play in that episode?
In the Summit 5?
Yeah. I'm trying to
Strother.
put his... Okay.
He
Right,
plays
yeah,
Strother's, the guy who was an uncle agent in Berlin, and he was the one who tortured Napoleon.
Yes. I was thinking, I feel like I picture him, doing something sadistic, but I can't,
Yeah. And, remember the scene when Napoleon was hugging a leg? He was hugging his leg.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And begging to see Ilya.
Oh, we'll get to that eventually.
But for now, they just get to eat sandwiches together and be in a helicopter.
Yep, with no prosciutto.
Yeah, and that guy who plays Trousers is still very harmless, I guess.
He just wants to, elope with a woman who doesn't want to elope with him.
Yeah.
Minor crimes in the grand scheme of Uncle.
Yeah.
We're so desensitized that we're oh yeah, kidnapping a woman and eloping with her against her will, whatever.
Hey, he's not trying to light a whole country on fire or something.
Yeah. I mean, this episode is pretty hard to rewatch, I would say, because when we watch it for the first time, it's oh, okay, she just goes along with everything. But when you watch it for the first time, you see Mary and you're like, oh, poor lady. It's gets worse and worse every time, I would say, basically.
Yeah, it's
Because-
interesting though, because Mary is actually one of the few, ladies who in no way is sort of forced back into, like, a family-related situation at the end. Like, there is a tendency for the Innocents to have an ending that kind of focuses on the idea of, like, connection with either, like, a significant other or family in some way. And, like, Mary just gets to own her own nightclub. So, like, yeah, a bunch of terrible stuff happens to her, but, like, also she's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur now. I don't
But like, to be honest, I didn't even remember that she got the club in the end when I was watching the episode, because it's not like a major thing. It happens in the last minute, and
yeah.
you only get to remember the fact that she was pushed around all the episodes. There was a pretty good scene in the train when Cordia was trying to basically blackmail Max into giving him the diamonds and stuff. And I mean, I had no memories of it whatsoever because it's kind of very long. But when you watch it, it's okay. I don't know. Like, you remember when Napoleon comes to and joins them in the train, and
Oh yeah, they're like in that little booth, and
yeah, it's like one of the things that you enjoy watching, but then you don't remember it at all because it's like what? And I guess it's supposed to be like this big conflict scene in which all parties meet, like Thrush, Von Stretten, and Uncle and Mary, and nothing really happens.
Yeah. I remember writing down for that scene, like, Napoleon fails completely at taking anyone by surprise. Like, he just goes onto the train and he's like, okay, I'm gonna interrupt this Thrush thing, and then instead he just immediately gets captured, and it's like, Napoleon, you are truly the worst spy on the planet.
But also, like,
and he's apparently like one of Uncle's finest.
No, but it's supposed to show that he values civilian lives, I guess, because when Corio points his gun at Mary, the point is like, oh, okay, I give up.
Yeah.
So it's like, he's a good guy, right? There are many scenes like that in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. because, like, they always try to show that Uncle values lives of ordinary people, but at the same time they are alright with kidnapping them or burning their hay or destroying their stuff and everything. I mean, the way Napoleon acted with Sofia Grushenko was pretty funny, I guess, because there was this line in this episode where, like, every time Grushenko saw Napoleon, she hated him more and more.
She also at some point, like, basically tries to break his nose with a door, which is entertaining and also...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, it's a really... I like this episode a lot, and it's not one that is intricate, I guess, is not the way I would put it, but it's very enjoyable. And I feel like it's a good episode in terms of its sort of, like, level of fun. It has a good innocent, and it also has a lot of really, like, very lovely Napoleon and Elia moments. And I feel like because of that, despite the fact that it's not necessarily a smart episode, but it's a fun episode, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, me too. That's pretty much it.
Oh, and as one closing thought, there is a scene in this episode in which, during a fight, an entire wall of the set falls down, and no one notices.
I didn't notice it.
I didn't even notice it. I don't remember that.
Well, when did it happen?
It's so it's when they've cleared the furniture out of the apartment, when Choreo comes back to confront Joe, and he and Napoleon end up fighting, and like Napoleon throws him out a window. Shortly before Napoleon throws him out a window, it's filmed from above, so it's a scene where like they're looking down on the set, and like someone bonks into a wall, and it literally just falls down, and I'm not sure the cameraman noticed. I don't think any of the actors noticed, because there it is on film.
Whoa!
And I feel like that right there is a metaphor for all of Man from U.N.C.L.E. Like, it's fun, so who cares?
Yeah. So, the next week we will be watching the Brain Killer affair. I guess. Because I think it's good enough for its own episode. And
I've never seen it, so I wouldn't know.
It was actually filmed the third, so it had to be episode number 3, but they decided to change the order due to some reasons that we will discuss next week.
I'm looking forward to this one. I have absolutely no recollection of it.
I mean, the only
no. Let me be surprised.
Yeah, okay. I won't spoil it.
Won't spoil the thing I already saw.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fun having the memory of a goldfish.
And the thing is almost 60 years old, right?
Yeah, yep. Spoiler tags,
spoilers.
Come on.
Wow, you haven't seen all the Man from U.N.C.L.E. episodes, and they were released in the 60s? Wow, you need to get yourself together.
No, I mean, like,
wow.
You know how spoilers are usually used for things that only recently came out? Like...
Yeah. Well, I have not consumed a lot of old content that people often assume everyone has experienced.
Like the Terminator.
So, you never know.
Well, next week we will spoil the Brain Killer affair, so be prepared.
Oh, okay, imagine if we had like a spoiler warning on this show. Because
alright.
This podcast is literally just us spoiling the man.
Yeah.
Okay. See you next week.
Have a wonderful week until we see you next, lovely audience.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.